I'd like to talk today about the death of the cult of a leader and the birth of a new age, a new culture of leadership, and the way people will learn how this way will bring this new culture. I'd like to tell you a story from my personal life, and maybe the same happened to you. You know, I was in the kitchen with my son, Leonard. Leonard is 15-year-old, and he told me, "Dad, I don't want to go to school anymore." I said, "What?" When I was your age, I mean, only the children who had bad grades didn't want to go to school. But you have good grades. You are a good student. So why then? And then he replied, "Dad, would you seriously go to a school where you have to listen passively to a teacher during 8 hours a day, having to learn by heart what he's saying, to retrieve this in a quiz 2 weeks after, when you know you can find this in 2 seconds on your smartphone, on Google?" So I didn't know what to answer him, of course. So I decided to check this a bit further. And when I was taking in my car, his friends back from football, I was asking them, "Are you happy at school?" And I said, "What? School? This sort of jail we are forced to go to every day to learn things we don't even know what they are used for." Could you imagine that? On one side, people in poor countries fighting to have an education, so happy to go to school if they have the chance to go to school. On the other side, millions of children, I think, in developed countries who are not happy at school. And when you know that happiness in education usually drives success, so unhappiness probably drives a lot of failures. I had an even worse experience a few months after. I was taking back my youngest son, Simon, he was 6, to the primary school for his first day. Before, Simon was at the kindergarten, and I loved that environment. It was so, I would say, colorful, with those round tables. So he was sitting around with his friends, connecting to each other. And each week, I was watching the way he was learning. He was showing me his drawings, the way he has to tell stories. He was learning by that without even knowing that he was learning. And suddenly, we entered his new classroom, and I could see all those tables, aligned behind each other, and he had to sit down passively, listening to the professor. Wow, my poor son thrown in jail for the next 15 years of his life. If you think about it, maybe there is a problem in the way we learn. So you may say, well, this is how it is. This is how millions of children have been educated since the end of the 19th century. The invention of public school for everyone. But I think it's not true anymore. I think that digital is bringing a revolution in such a massive way, in an unstoppable way, that it will change forever the way we learn, also the way we work, of course, the way we interact, and it will bring a new culture of leadership. Today, 15 million of people are fighting to have a better education, to have a better future, having an online degree by themselves. They decided to do it by themselves. Today, 10 million of people are following a MOOC, massive online open courses, by themselves, just driven by their own passion. Today, 10 million of children have access to education, thanks to a website called the Khan Academy, which is offering free courses from the primary school to the college. Fantastic courses, I would say. Learning by themselves. Today, thousands of schools in the United States have flipped the classroom. So instead of listening passively to the professor, collectively, and then having to do the exercises alone at home, and then sometimes succeed and sometimes fail at the exam, they have reversed the process. Children are learning at home using online games, online tutorials, what they can find on YouTube, given by the professor, of course, and then they can having the exercises together, helped by the professor. So the professor in this example is not a knowledge giver anymore. He's a coach, he's an advisor, and it's much more efficient. Today, a company like Crossknowledge that I co-founded is having 5 million learners across the planet in 117 countries. And it's 30% more than last year. And those people learn by themselves and develop themselves. It's a huge shift. It's a huge revolution. And I'd like to tell you, I think it's 4 revolutions. First one, in the access to knowledge. The relationship to knowledge, in fact. The second one is the relationship to expertise. The third one is the relationship to education. And the fourth one is in the relationship to authority. The first one, if we think about it, the French philosopher Michel Serres is saying, Gutenberg has brought the knowledge public, thanks to printing. But internet has brought the knowledge outside of ourselves. Outside. So instead of feeding students with knowledge, we have to teach them how to find the knowledge from the outside world. And I can tell you, exactly as my son is saying, everything is in there, in your smartphone. So knowing how to search will become a critical skill in the future. You better know how to search to find where the knowledge is. Relationship to expertise. I was in one of the most prestigious business schools in Europe a few weeks ago. And there was a faculty talking about how 3D environments were changing how the way people were interacting. And he was using data that I checked on my smartphone because I was a bit amazed by his data. And they were, in fact, irrelevant. They were 5-year-old. So I found that this expert was not an expert anymore. So if you are a professor, maybe stop pretending you are an expert. Give advice, give coaching, help people to find the right expertise. Third revolution, in the way we see education. What you have learned at school or at a university has probably become irrelevant. Think about marketing, for example. Things are changing so much, so fast. Jobs are becoming so specialized that you have to upskill yourself regularly. This is called lifelong learning. If you don't do that, you will be put aside, side of the road. So you have to become a self-learner, to take ownership of your own education. And to get credit for that, you're not even obliged to go to school again. If you know a website like Stack Overflow is a big IT website. On this website, you can ask questions and answer questions. And you know this website is very smart. They are selling the names of the most reputable experts to the recruiters. So social reputation is bringing jobs rather than education itself. The fourth revolution is about our relationship to authority. My son doesn't want to go to school anymore, but people do not want to get trained anymore. 40% of people do not show up to trainings nowadays. People want to learn. As Churchill was saying, I love learning, but I don't want to be taught. Why spending 3 days in a classroom to learn something just in case? when I can learn it just in time. Having access to the right knowledge, having access to the right network of people. But beyond that, why learning a process when I can find it as a best practice, posted on a social network? So people do not want to be told, but they didn't want to be told. They want to be empowered. They want to do things by themselves. They can reach the goal. Someone has understood that. He's called Vineet Nayar. He's the CEO of HCL Technologies, and he has transformed his company by giving the power to the people on the field, people who take care of the customers. And those people, they can force the support functions, the managers, up to the CEO to solve their problems because they have the power and they are networked. And this way, he really reversed the pyramid. Instead of doing that, it's the other way right. And the growth of HCL has become massive. If you think about an organization like the Army, a very classical, hierarchical organization like the Army. In the US Army, 40 years ago, any bombing decision in Vietnam had to be validated by the President of the United States. But now, if you take the war in Afghanistan that has taken place in the last 10 years, power was given to young lieutenants of 30-year-olds to take by themselves strike decisions because they were educated, because they were sharing principles, because they were considered as self-leaders, exactly as those people in HCL Technologies. People empowered, becoming self-leaders, making sure that they had the right skills and the right values to take the right decisions. So I'd like to tell my children, and I'd like to tell the children on the whole planet, maybe you have to say the same things to your own children. Free yourself. Take ownership. Take ownership of your own learning. Become self-learners, because this is the way you will become self-leaders. Thanks for your attention.